to this slide here. Now, what I've been holding in here is actually, I've got the physical version here, and I know that the topic of what we've kind of been talking on touches on a lot of themes which can be found in this book here. Before we get to your bibliography and some literature that people who might be interested to kind of do some further reading on work that you've done and the research, just tell us a little about 2 or 3 minutes here about this book and so on and so forth.
Okay, well, this book arose out of a conference, a CommuCap conference, that is the World Union of, or World Group of Catholic Institutes of Philosophy. So it's the group that deals with departments of philosophy that are in Catholic universities. So they're representatives. Now, we had a conference in 2015, and the theme of the conference was really looking at this disquiet with the sort of transactional understanding of what education is about, the neoliberal kind of view of education. But what do we do about it? What are the alternatives? So what we've got here is a number of papers drawn from that conference which look at different ways of thinking about education. So the idea clearly is about the idea of what influence does education have in civil society, that is the ordinary world we live in, let alone, the influence kind of in the broader notion of the state itself, but civil society. How does it help form civil society? I mean, we're all part of civil society. We all live in neighbourhoods and communities, and how is education to impact on that? It's not just about jobs. It's not just about skills for jobs. It's about human formation as well. So what we have here in this particular volume is a collection of differing views about what that might look like. And they range from looking at some of the stuff what Adorno has to say. There's stuff there from John Paul II. There is a variety of positions. Paul Ricoeur gets a mention. McIntyre, of course, features in a number of papers there, who takes a very different kind of view of the importance of education as an encounter with other kinds of practices and so on. So there's a variety of ways of thinking about education in terms of human formation. So the book covers some of the sort of things we've discussed today,
Sure.
and I think in a very useful kind of way. It doesn't try to be dogmatic about this, but it's trying to portray some differing ways in which we might think about education, drawing back, I suppose, some of the older sort of conceptions of education as being connected to human formation. So yes. I think it's trying to give that other dimension.
Sure. Okay, now we've got about 2 minutes.
Right.
And so in about 2 minutes, let's just talk at some literature. This is recent literature.
Yep.
For those who may want to do some further reading in this space, or have a look at some of your work, is there anything in particular here, by the way, it goes over the page here too, but is there anything in particular here that, obviously I've got the book we've made reference to, which is the top book there, and then obviously there's 2 sections from the edited book, and then obviously there's your recent publication here in Springer by Religion and Culture and Dialogue, East and West Perspectives, and then you've got some recent stuff from Educational Philosophy and Theory. I'll just go over the page here, and then of course you have that recent book on healthcare ethics. So 2 minutes.
I guess the sort of themes that I've been interested in are obviously in education, but more broadly in social and political philosophy. Obviously healthcare ethics is important. There are issues in bioethics also move into the areas of how we understand society and what are the kind of ways in which some of the difficult issues in bioethics are to be dealt with. there's a range of things. What do we mean? Organ donation. There's questions of what that involves. Commercialisation of organs. The question of medical hydration and nutrition, for example. When should it be withdrawn, or should it be withdrawn? Issues to do with experimentation. The artificial reproductive technology, those kinds of things. These are kind of issues which are specifically in bioethics, but there are surrounding these are particular kinds of social and political, philosophical kinds of views about what kinds of values we ought to support and what kinds of values we should have in society. So some of the other stuff that I've got there is partly to do with that. Specifically educational stuff, again, the themes are reasonably constant. The idea of public values, what those should be, the idea of formation, the idea of schools as moral habitats.
Yes.
Again, is trying to take an alternative way of reading what we understand education to be for. So there's a series of, I guess, socio-political kinds of ideas here about the nature of the world, and then how that impinges both in the kind of bioethics area, but also in education. So some of that is really related to those sorts of areas that we've been talking about. So there is a kind of thematic grand theme here. Underpinning it is a kind of metaphysics, obviously, a kind of, I'd have to say, a Thomistic metaphysics, which is a realist metaphysics. So I guess partly due to my background in science, so I begin in scientific realism, but also metaphysical. I could switch into metaphysical realism. So all of those things are kind of there as a sub-theme, if you like. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in. We might finish there. Once we get going, it's hard to stop. So, but thank you. Thank you for coming in. I've appreciated it, and thank you for watching.